I'm Darielle. I'm sharing this story in hopes that you don't make the same mistake that I made. And if you find yourself in this situation, you can get out. I did. I was in my late 20s and he was in his late 40s. I was the church secretary and he was the pastor. He was married pastor. Yeah, I know. One day, working in a church, we got a phone call. And we were informed that he was arrested. His wife had called the police on him for domestic violence. Now, the way that it was in this church is that we idolized him. He could do no wrong. Everybody wanted to be around him, be in his presence, falling over themselves, just trying to, just be at his beck and call, whatever he needed. Not everyone, but a lot of people. And I was one of those people. So when he told us that she was lying and it wasn't true, most of us believed him. We rallied around him and she instantly became the victim. Well, that made it impossible for her to come back. And she didn't. In a couple of days, he was out of jail. He came back to the church. We were all happy to see him, and he called me one night. And that wasn't unusual, except the conversation was different. He wanted to know about my personal life. He asked me about my son's father. Wanted to know if he was still in our lives. And I was like, oh yeah, he was, but we weren't together. He wanted to know about my past relationships. How did they end? I told him the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it was a lot of ugly. Why wouldn't I share this information? He was the pastor. I trusted him. The next day he shared with me, hey, don't let anybody know that we had that conversation. I don't want any rumors going on. Okay, no problem. I didn't even bat an eye. Then as we came to the end of the day, he said, I want to go and relax and go to the beach. Can you have time? Can you drive me? Oh, sure, whatever you want. That wasn't unheard of. So he sat in the back and I drove him. But before, as we were leaving, my close friend is the Sunday school teacher. She said, hey, what's going on? Where you going? Oh, nowhere. We were just running some errands. That's it. So we go to the beach and I'm sitting in the front seat and put on some music at his request. And he said, why don't you come sit back here? I go back and sit there thinking nothing. He's talking about his wife and how she don't understand him and she lied on him. And I was just, trying to make him feel better. And then he starts saying how maybe I could be the next wife. And maybe I would be that woman for him because I was so supportive and caring and had such a big heart. And inside I was like, oh my gosh, he thinks that I could be his wife. This is amazing. Then he put his hand on my leg. And I said, oh, wait a minute. Oh, no. Oh, you got to be careful now. Because that's not appropriate, and you are a married man, and I gotta wait till you get a divorce, and then we gotta wait till we get married. And I was so proud inside. I was thinking, oh yes, he's gonna see that I can pass the test, and I am a good girl, and I will do things correctly, and he will be so proud of me. And that is not how he reacted. He immediately began to berate me and tell me that I was immature and a child, and he thought I was adult enough to handle this situation. And I had never had him talk to me this way. And so I was completely thrown off. And then I told the biggest lie to myself. Maybe he knows more than me. He's the pastor. Maybe he knows something I don't. And I convinced myself to just do wherever he said. And I said, okay, no, I am mature enough. I can do this. Yes, I could do this. Just give me a chance. While we didn't go all the way in the car that day, we began a sexual affair. Yes, the church secretary and the pastor. Things moved quickly after that, and people became suspicious. Why, you ask? Well, his wife, the first lady, that's what some churches call the wives of the pastors, was the best dressed lady at the church, and now she was no longer there. And then I became the best dressed lady at the church. He told me what to wear and how to act and how to be. He even had me take out my nose ring. He told me that that was inappropriate. He began to come over late at night, 2 and 3 and 4 times a week. The first act of violence happened when he was angry because people started to leave the church. And so he came over to break up with me, and I panicked. Oh my gosh, no, you can't leave me. I need you. I was so wrapped up in my emotions and in my mind, and I was so twisted in my head and thinking and lying to myself that this was okay, begging him not to leave. And standing there in front of him, I didn't see him raise his hand, and he slapped the hell out of me. I hit the ground. I didn't even see it coming. I laid there stunned, and I could feel him step over me and heard him walk out the door like nothing. And you would think that is the end of this story, but it is not. In a couple of days, he was back, and we were back again in this sexual affair that we were having. And there was another time that he broke things off, and I actually contemplated suicide. But he would come back, and we would continue, and then people just continued to leave. So then he thought it'd be a good idea to throw them off the scent by having me leave the church and pretend like nothing I had left because of the rumors. Well, of course, that didn't work. And so then his next bright idea was to move from LA County to Orange County. That way, then he would have more privacy and move right into the house with him. So now we're living together. And let me give you an idea of what that was like. His control was full now. We lived in Orange County, and he controlled everything. He controlled what I ate, what I wore, how I acted. I had to work, cook, clean. He did absolutely nothing around the house. He felt like that a man didn't have to do those things, that was a woman's job. And so I did everything, including servicing him. There was no. There was no, I'm tired, I don't feel like it. That didn't exist. I didn't have any choice in the matter, so I felt. Family and friends came to see about me, my mother, cousins, uncles, but I lied to all of them, telling them that everything was okay, and it was okay, it was great. It was really wonderful. Don't believe what you see. And slowly, I was completely isolated from the people that I cared and loved. One day, he allowed me to go out to lunch. No, I want to erase that. As people started to leave, eventually the church failed. And we came up on the last Sunday. We were getting ready for church, and I was in the bathroom. And he came, didn't say a word. He wrapped his hands around my neck and squeezed. He didn't say anything. All you could hear is me trying to breathe. It never occurred to me to fight him or any of that. And then as quickly as it started, He let go, walked out as though he didn't just choke me in the bathroom. And we went to church, and that was the end of the church. Doors closed. He allowed me to go out to dinner one night with a friend of mine, and I was so happy. And I went out with her, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. She had no idea what was going on. And so she was like, so how are things? And I was telling her how I owed him everything. He gave up everything for me, and that I need to stay with him at least for the next 20 years until he died, because I cost him his church. I cost him everything, and he deserves this, and I owe him my life. And then when I'm in my 40s and he's dead, then I'll be able to continue to live my life. And just how you're looking at me, that's how she was looking at me. She said, are you crazy? Have you lost your mind? You don't owe nobody that kind of sacrifice except God. And so I'm like, but I did this and I did that and it's all my fault. And she was like, no, he played a part in that too. This is not all on you. That sparked something. I would like to tell you that it sparked a lot of something, but it didn't. But it did get me to start thinking a little bit for myself and remembering who I was. So much so, I started listening to my mom and my cousin telling me to leave. And so one day, when he was gone, I packed up all my stuff and I left and moved into my own apartment. I would love to tell you that the story ended there and we went happily ever after, but that's not what happened. In 2 weeks, he was living in my house with me and my son. And let me explain to you what that was like. Although his control had slipped a little bit because I had a little independence, start thinking for myself, well, I began to become angry. I wasn't putting up with all them rules he used to put on me anymore. And so anger and resentment set in, not only within myself, but within him. That fear that I used to have was no longer there. I used to think about how I could get rid of him. And I don't mean like get rid of him just to put him out. That's all I'm going to say. That's when I knew I needed to do something, but I didn't know what to do. But I didn't have long to wait because it all came to a head one night over keys and jewelry. He had been in a car accident and broke his leg, so he was in a wheelchair. But he was able to also get up and use a walker. While he was in the living room, I went in the kitchen and my ring was missing from the bar. So I asked him, where's my ring? He said, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you don't know what I'm talking about? So I went in the room to get his jewelry and take that and hide it. And he heard me. What are you doing? I'm not doing nothing. And then I heard the sound of my keys. You know how you can hear what your keys sound like? And so I hit the jewelry and came out. And I said, where are my keys? He said, I don't know where your keys are. And so I looked and I could see that there was a bulge in his pocket. And I could see that they were my keys. So I tried to get them out. And so we were tussling as he's sitting in the wheelchair. Well, he picks up a pen because I was getting the best of him. And he starts going like this, where his pocket was. So I couldn't get my hand in there. And then I backed away. Of course, I don't want to get stabbed with the pen. And so he rode up to the bedroom trying to get in there and get on his walker so he could see about his jewelry. Well, I flung the walker because I didn't want him. I was mad and I didn't want him to go in the bedroom. And he did like this with the pen still in his hand and stabbed me right here in the arm. That is when I was done. And so what I did is I called security. On the phone, he got on the extension in the bedroom. And yes, that's when phones was in the house and you had more than one. And he was hollering and screaming at them, and 7 security guards showed up because of that. They want to know, do you want us to, and they were police officers moonlighting, so you'll understand the next statement. They asked me if I wanted to have him arrested. And I said, I just wanted him to leave. And so they talked to him. He said he would leave. He called his parents to come and get him. He then start looking around the apartment. How we're going to divide all this up, how we're going to divide the money in the account. I told him, don't worry about it. We'll take care of it tomorrow. Don't worry. And he was like, okay, we just need to take some time. You're right. I told him whatever he wanted to hear to get him out of my apartment. They came and got him, his parents. The next day, I took off from work. I went to the bank. I withdrew all but $10 from the account. I took my name off the account. I went to the leasing office. I took his name off the lease. I had my locks changed. I packed up all of his stuff. Well, the stuff I was going to give him. His clothes, his shoes, and some books. His parents called in a couple of days. I met them at the curb so they would not come in my apartment, and gave them all his stuff. That's when the stalking began. He began calling me 30 to 50 times a day, every day. This went on for a week or two. What was the voicemails? Oh, hey, how you doing? Like we was having conversation, but he was having conversation by himself because I never called him back. I stopped answering my phone. While the cell phones existed, of course, everybody didn't have one. And so if you wanted to get a hold of me, you just had to call twice and hang up and then call back because I couldn't answer my phone anymore. And my phone rang constantly. He called me a lot when I was at work, but at home on my voicemail. Anyway, after about 2 weeks, he must have went to his storage and saw what was in there. And then he called me one more time. And this time he threatened my life. He told me that there was no way in the world I was going to take everything from him and take his money and his stuff and still be allowed to breathe the same air as him. Of course, that scared me, and I went immediately to get a restraining order. He showed up at the hearing. I believe I can't remember if it's a couple of days or a week that you have a hearing. And he showed up and he was on a cane. And he sat there and he told the judge that I was a whore and a tramp and a slut, and I had ruined his life and his church, and I was this evil, crazy person. And I just sat there and I took it. I was absolutely mortified. The court was full of a lot of people. And the judge sat there and listened to him, and I didn't know what was going to happen. And the judge said, would you like to stay away from her, sir? Yes, I would like to stay away from her. He said, good, I grant you a 3-year restraining order, Darielle. And he was so mad. And I never looked at him the whole time in court. I never acknowledged him. And the last thing he said to me was a threat. And he held up his cane and he said, I should just hit you in the head with this cane. And the bailiff came over and told him to be quiet or he was going to be arrested right there in the courtroom. And I never saw him again. What did I learn? I learned that I will never, ever again get involved with a married person. My stance now, you are married until you are divorced. Period. I don't want to hear about legal separation. Oh, she left. Oh, she in hospice. I don't care about any of that. I don't idolize anyone except God. No human on this earth gets that honor. I learned that I cannot allow my emotions to dictate my life. I will feel them, but that doesn't mean that what I'm feeling is the truth, because your emotions lie to you. They don't tell you what's really going on. I no longer lie to myself. Self-deception is so disastrous. That's like scamming you. We out here looking to make sure we don't get scammed, but we gonna scam ourselves? No, I don't do that anymore. I'll also never throw away the people that care and love about me. Thank goodness I still have a lot of those people in my life. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They're there for accountability. And that accountability helps keep you safe, and we need that. My decisions affected not only me, but everyone around me. There was a lot of people who were wounded and hurt by the decisions him and I made. And please, don't think I was a victim of him. Neither one of us were victims of each other. We both made terrible decisions that hurt people. And lastly, I had to forgive myself. Holding on to shame and regret would only destroy me as a person. I've learned to move past my bad choices. When you know better, you do better. Choose wisely. Choices matter.